So there's a series of questions that you might be able to see here. I'll read them, and then I guess there's, it's a Likert scale, strongly disagree to strongly agree.
Yeah.
So the first one is participants in my group, that's us, understand the changes to teaching and learning which are associated with the next generation standards. Okay, so how about strongly agree? It's a pretty short presentation. So how about agree? Disagree? Strongly disagree?
Which do you like?
I guess he was looking for us to.
I was trying to do a straw poll.
Yeah.
They wanted to
But-
do a survey live online.
Yeah, I gotta put it in.
The state wants to know, how you feel right
Yeah,
now.
in other words, do you think you understand the changes to teaching and learning associated with NGS?
We've had 20 minutes to give it to you.
You've had 20 minutes to
yeah.
think about it.
So you might feel, I won't be insulted, believe me. If you feel that you don't quite get it yet.
Should we do a poll again?
Do a straw poll.
Okay.
Now that we know what we're doing.
Okay, I'm sorry, it wasn't clear. So how many people strongly agree with that they understand? How about agree? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay. 6? Disagree? 2?
All right, so I guess
Strongly disagree?
we don't have any strength.
Okay, so we're more in the agree area. Next question. Participants in my group believe that the changes which will occur if we adopt the NGSS will be good for Connecticut children. So right now, they haven't been fully adopted. I will tell you from the group that I've been with, most of us like the standards, and we're thinking of adopting them maybe with some slight modifications. However, we're interested in what the board thinks. So we'll straw poll again. So in other words, the question again was, how many of you feel that the changes will, if we adopt NGSS, that's going to be good for Connecticut children? How many people strongly agree with that? Okay. Agree? 6. Disagree? 1. And strongly disagree. Okay, so we're more, once again, agree category. Okay, our third question. Participants in my group believe that the changes which will occur if we adopt NGSS will be good for the state of Connecticut as a whole. So NGSS will be good for the state as a whole. Strongly agree? 1. What was it, 2? No? Oh. Agree? 1, 2, 3, 4. Disagree? 1, 2, 3.
Tied. Good heavens, now what?
Or strongly disagree? We had one, that's a tough one.
That one is a tough, why would we leave it blank?
Check in the middle.
I know, we can't check the middle.
Let's leave it blank.
I don't know if it'll
Seriously.
let me, but we'll try.
They might not like that.
We'll try.
Okay.
Can you do 2? Well, I'll change my vote to agree.
Okay, well then it makes it completely,
Okay.
I'm
That
gonna
one?
check that for now, disagree, because it's
Okay,
in the middle.
okay.
Participants in my group have some concerns related to the adoption of NGSS. So adoption of NGSS, you have some concerns. Strongly agree?
Yeah, I
1,
thought
2,
so.
3, 4, 5, 6.
I think we
Okay,
could say
I
that
think
they
that's
agree.
good. That's a strongly.
That's a strongly.
Agree? Disagree? Okay, so that's a strong, okay. Okay. All right, and then just a few open-ended questions, if you just, I'll type them in if you have. What are things you like best about NGSS, if anyone has any things they want to add?
The focus on doing things that will actually translate to the workforce.
Okay. Anything else?
To make sure that students clearly understand what's being taught.
Hmm.
Clear expectations.
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay.
That's good.
Anything else?
I think the model of transitioning periodically, systematically, rather than all at once as we've been modeled.
The phase.
Yeah. model.
Oh, the adoption phasing in the standards, okay. Okay,
Probably
great.
relates to the next one. You know, it's concerns that we fit here.
Okay, anything else on this one? Andrew,
And
Norton?
hopefully bringing jobs to the state of Connecticut. In that-
Possibility of bringing qualified workers to jobs?
Yeah.
again?
Well, bringing jobs that require
Oh, bring-
qualified
okay.
workers. So,
Okay, anything else? Okay, let's go on to the next one. If your participants had concerns, which we did, related to the adoption of NGSS, please describe concerns below, so.
Financial burden. the
Fin-
taxpayer.
Financial burden for local taxpayers, okay? Anything else? Yes?
My greatest concern is the fact that every few years we seem to be changing our standards.
10.
Understood, but your adoption phase is half of that
That's
10-year
true.
period.
Good point.
So you're not even getting a full cohort of kids out of high school before you're really changing it.
Okay, that's a good point.
So,
So longer spacing between adoptions changes. In other words, stop changing it.
yeah, give us at least a 20-year period to actually get it through and get a full class through.
Yeah, all the way from kindergarten
Okay.
up. Okay.
Yes?
I have a concern about the development of new assessments. Just
How they're developed, or
What?
in what respect?
Well, we're kind of jumping into the SBACs for these other subjects, and we don't know how effective those assessments are yet. And now we're developing new assessments for new subjects, and I just have concerns about that.
Concern about, just in general, okay.
Yeah, how we'll know how effective.
Just so you know, they will not be national. They'll be developed locally, well, statewide. Although it's a consortium of states, so there's multiple states will contribute.
Right. Well, and also there might be financial things that go along with that too. If they all need computers for that, the way they do with the SBACs, there's issues there.
And Mr. Nargi, you mentioned something about jobs in the state, having trained people coming to the state or being trained in the state, right? So state, workers being trained to use state, it's a concern that we don't have that now, but this would be brought by the standards. People working in technology and so on, engineering, physicians.
Anything else on that? Okay, last question. What does your group want to know more about related to NGSS? Please describe.
They'll be letting you know if you tell them what else you would like to hear. You're going to, of course, get that material from CABE that will tell you the more about what boards of education would like to know, I'm sure. So, after that, you may still want to know some stuff. And you can let Jeff know or me know, and we can, try to answer your questions if you have any more that come up as you go home and you think about this.
Any comments on that one? No? Okay.
Anything
All right,
else?
thank you very much.
Yes, thank you
Thank you.
so much for allowing us to come, and the state thanks you.
Thank you very much.
Send a check.
Thanks.
Okay, outsourcing groundwork contract, Mr. Bissetta.
I believe we had sent some stuff out in the packet. Most of it was self-explanatory. The board looked at this a while back, and I believe they looked favorably on this during the budget process as far as a possible way to cut costs and save money, not only the first year, but years going forward. So I can try to answer any questions.
Dave, if I understood correctly, by not having the existing custodial staff working outside, you estimated that there would be 4,200 hours that you could put people back into the buildings instead of outside in the groundskeeping?
Yeah, I sent I sent an estimated work time sheet out to everyone. And I don't think, I think I wasn't exaggerating here. I thought I was kind of conservative on these numbers. And these numbers being the actual numbers that we feel these guys are, you know, our custodians are working outside. Doing that, those 4,200 hours would be actually placed in the buildings. We would have to reconfigure the work crew that we have to equalize that among the buildings to, you know, just to make it more efficient.
Any other questions?
But you're not putting two more people in the building because you're not going to hire two salaried people.
Right.
How are you getting 4,200 more hours into the building when you have two less custodians?
That's a good point.
When we went to outsourcing snow removal, et cetera, I asked the question, will we be seeing, the next time we talk budgets, you wanting to reduce the custodial staff because of that? Because that was a concern. The buildings need help, and you said the same thing, that we'd have people working inside. And yet, last night, Monday night, at our budget meeting, we had a proposal to cut 2 custodians. So it might not do me any good, but I'm going to ask the question again. Are we going to be asked to cut custodial staff at some point in the future because of this? Because the answer I got last time turned out not to be true.
Say that again.
In fairness, there was one custodian.
There was one custodian on the board.
There was one on the agenda,
On the agenda.
on the list of cuts.
But we're going to have 2 fewer, right?
We have 2 positions that currently are
Right.
vacant. And in the attempt to try to get to a list of 0 cuts for the city, not necessarily cuts we want to make, we were trying to make a prioritized list because the city requested us to make a list of 0. There was an offer of every department, we were losing teachers, we were losing secretaries. There was an offer in an attempt to cut $2.1 million for that list for the city. One of the offerings was 1 custodial position. It didn't have anything to do with snow removal, it was just we had to cut $2.1 million from our budget. It wasn't directly tied to that, it was a general staff reduction.
And next year it won't be tied to this either, but it'll happen again. I'm
It
just saying.
seems to happen every year.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
I have another.
Dan had one.
Sorry. At our last board meeting, a custodian came up to sit here and said there were 24 custodians in the building. Your proposal is to reduce the 2 current vacant positions down to 26.
That's correct.
What happened to the other 2 custodians? That obviously the custodian that was here to represent the custodians didn't know about, or are they out on compensation?
There's 28 custodians on the roster books correctly right now.
Correct.
There are 2, possibly 3, I have to go back, that are out on workman's comp.
Okay. Throughout the course of this year, have we had more than 26 custodians in our buildings at any one time?
No.
Okay.
I haven't had a full crew.
So you've been able to keep the buildings functioning as it is with less than 26 custodians? And they're still taking care of the outside grounds maintenance, other than the snow removal of the parking lots? Because they still, I believe, if I remember correctly, take care of the snow removal of the sidewalks, correct?
It's been difficult because I've had to issue quite a bit of overtime to try to get everything done. Okay, that has been difficult, but we have been able to move people around and cover the inside of the buildings, but, you know, more priority should be on the inside of the building. That's where I've had to move people around.
Okay, so in this proposal, we're not laying anybody off. We're just
No.
not backfilling 2 open positions.
Correct.
And your staffing levels will still be at or above the level you've worked with this year.
Correct. With a healthy group, I would have 26. That would be more than what I've been working.
We do have open discussion going on about substitute custodians.
Yes, Jeff brought that up during the contract negotiations, and he was very clear about the fact that we have full authority to do substitutes for any of our divisions. He made that extremely clear during the contract negotiations.
Kid,
No, Jeff jumped.
that's when we did the negotiations was
We
last year.
did Jeff jump last year in June with the nurses. He took over after Kip left.
Okay, just a point of clarification on what exactly we're voting on, because we're done with the budget for next year. Are we voting on whether we want to outsource this work, or are we voting on outsourcing the work and eliminating 2 custodians?
We're voting on an outsourcing package of outsourcing the work and how it will be paid for.
So by voting for this, we would not be voting for the elimination of 2 custodians?
It would be.
Yes, you would be.
You would be voting on how this would be funded within the budget that we have.
And for clarification, you're not eliminating 2 custodians. You're just not backfilling 2 custodians that have not been here this year.
No, that's not.
That are not here now.
They're not
Well, no,
here in
my
body,
question
but
to-
they're technically here. They're on the staff.
They're on the books.
Right,
They're just
so
not in the buildings.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's a difference.
You have another question?
Yeah, I had another question. I'm definitely, more than likely, not in favor of this, but I would be somewhat persuaded if you were to actually tell me that an hour of payment for their work would be more efficient than what we have on staff to do the same job.
I think it's pretty self-explanatory on the basic bottom paragraph that I gave you. You know, the solution above addresses as many concerns of not having enough manpower by consolidating the existing labor force to a very specific and concentrated role within the buildings. Now, we don't have to worry about maintaining tractors and lawnmowers anymore. I don't have to worry about pulling people out of a building to transport that machinery to go get it serviced, because we have to put it on a trailer, pick it up, bring it to a designated area for repair, drop it. After they drop it off, then take another person off-site, go get the trailer, go pick it up, bring it out. Again, we still have to fuel these things, so that takes another custodian away from his duties during the day. If they're constantly being interrupted to get called back into a building when they only have a few minutes, you know, especially the elementary, if they're only able to mow first thing in the morning, something happens, they have to be called back in. So it's not a very efficient use of time.
But with the few custodians that I've talked to, they are in total disagreement with the way you're presenting it to the board, in the sense that, yes, you'll be more efficient for the time in which they will actually be doing the exterior grounds. But they all are adamant that the year-long service of keeping these 2 positions will far outweigh the few months that they're taken outside of the building to do the ground service. This is their argument. I hear it from all of them, and it's persuasive to me. But maybe you can elaborate to the rest of the board the pros and cons of what they're saying, because they're clearly diametrically saying something opposite of what you're saying, as far as 12 months efficiency versus, yes, you're probably correct that for 3 months it's more efficient to do this, but you're getting much more year-round benefit by having them on staff full-time. I'm only making
Well,
an
again-
argument that if they were here, they would be making.
And they would, and they do make a good argument, I'm sure, but again, in the summer, your grounds basically almost have to go untouched because we need the personnel inside the building. That's where most of the concentration of cleanliness, a good environment on the inside of the building, your indoor air quality and whatnot takes place. So I think you really have to concentrate more on the insides of the building, your bathrooms, your labs, that type of stuff. If you're, I think it's hard for me to elaborate any more than the fact that when you look at your times, which I've given you, you take your maintenance, the amount of machinery that we have in every building that we have to maintain on a monthly basis or an annual basis. If something does break down, or even just plain maintenance, you can call it that. Whether it's sharpening blades or fueling, changing your greasing, changing oil, that type of stuff. These are all expenses that are all built up. Now, it's not just one. You're multiplying this by 15 to 16, 20 pieces of equipment that we're using all summer long. So I think, yes, I understand you want to keep the workforce. I don't want to lay anyone off. This is more of a way that you are actually being more responsible to the taxpayer of the city. If this is a definite way that we're going to be able to reduce costs for a long period of time, not just looking at the short term, because you're going to be looking. The equipment that we're going to have to start replacing that equipment soon too. If this is something that's going to stay on, you're not going to have to replace that equipment. That equipment possibly could be used in some way to offset some of the costs during the year also. As years go by, if we're not going to be using this equipment, then we could sell it off. So there's another savings there too. I'm not looking at get rid of this job. That's not what I'm looking at. I'm trying to be a little bit more efficient, in the way we do things. And this is the way I think it can be done.
Do you feel that your staff will be more effective if you went to the outsourcing that's being proposed?
Absolutely. Once again, they're going to be concentrating on one less thing that they have to worry about, or not one less thing, but the outsides and the grounds. This would, keep them indoors, keep them more in line with what we need to get done on the inside of the buildings.
So it's your feeling that going to the system will increase productivity?
Yes, that's what I'm hoping for.
I drive around town, we all do, and I don't look at the schools in the summer and say, that's disgusting. Why don't they get out here and mow or trim or whatever else? And for as long as I've been on the board and been familiar with the schools in other ways, I think our custodians take a lot of pride in their buildings, and they're very good at letting us know when they're frustrated at not being able to do their jobs. In fact, we got, I think, a very well-written email just a couple of weeks ago from a custodian who was in exactly that situation, making some legitimate points about the demands made on him. And I'm just wondering, why it is that they haven't expressed frustration over what you were talking about, having to drag this piece of equipment here to get it fixed, or having to check. We don't hear that as a complaint. I mean, it's a part of the job. And they're not complaining about it.
But once
I think
again,
what they're complaining about is not having the help they need to get the work done.
I don't, as time goes on, I don't see the numbers increasing. I don't see the numbers going back to where they were at one time. This has been a steady decline every year for the past 10 years or so that I've been involved in this job. To no fault of theirs, it's been put in the budget over 10 years that, you know, okay, I'd like to put 2 custodians in the budget again. I'd like to do this, you know, that has been received by the board, not just this board, but as not a very favorable thing. So if you're going to do that, then you have to look at an alternative way to try and again make this more productive and sustainable. And I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but I guess if we started looking around, I think there's a lot of things we could do probably in this room alone. And it's not that the work is not here, and it's not that we don't have possibly enough help in the building, but if they're doing something else, then, for instance, they're not going to paint in here.
So we have added staff in every other function in this school system, but not the custodians.
No.
And now we're going to cut more custodians by not
backfilling
positions.
Correct.
Doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Well, I think the trade.
Just in fairness, I don't think that in any way this proposal or the snow removal proposal were in connection or viewed in a disciplinary way because of the performance of our custodians. I don't think that we were disappointed in the performance of our custodians. I don't think that's the intent at all here. I think that the intent is we're asking people to do more than they can get done in a day. And it has been the history of this board over the last 10 years to reduce custodians before they reduce teaching staff. It has been to reduce secretaries before they reduce teaching staff. It has been, and that's been historical. I mean, that goes long before any of us sat here. It's been going on. This is just a way to try to give them more, instead of them being pulled in multiple directions, give them a focus and give the outdoor responsibility to someone else so that you're not, you know, where it becomes inconvenient. If you get 6 days of rain, they can't cut the grass. But at day 7 of that cycle, you're scheduled to have all this furniture is getting taken out of here and they're supposed to carpet this, or they're going to paint this, or they're going to, you have to take some of those people away and put them outside. Instead of being able to concentrate your force to do what they should be doing, because Murphy's Law, it always happens on a day when you need everybody to do something, that's the day you end up having to do something else. It's just, weather always plays against you. And, I don't view this at all as the administration or the board saying that the custodians are not doing a good job. This is, in my opinion, us saying that we've reduced them to the point that they can't, they're just running themselves to where they're not being as efficient as they could be because we don't have enough staff. So if we take away a responsibility, they should have enough hours to do the projects.
But we didn't replace the custodian at Forbes. We didn't replace, and I think it's Vogel-Wetmore is also down, large schools, a lot of kids. And we didn't see fit to replace those people, even with substitutes or as permanent employees. And here we are saying, well, okay, it seemed to work, nobody died because of the quality of the building, so I guess we can get rid of some more people. And you're saying it's going to bring people in. You know what's going to happen. Next year someone's going to say, oh, we can get rid of 2 more custodians. But we keep adding other staff. This is my point, that we cut custodians, we cut secretaries, we cut people who do that kind of work. Right. But every place else, or many other places, oh, we need more, or we definitely need someone to do this. gets to be frustrating.
No, I'm not arguing that with all of you, John. That's what I'm saying, that I just wanted to make sure. I don't think that this is a reflection of the quality of their work.
No, I wasn't
And I
saying
just-
that either. I'm just saying I feel sorry for these guys trying to work the way they do and held responsible for standards they can't possibly meet, given what we give them.
Yes.
You know, I think that if maybe this proposal was done when we were at the height of membership, when we had 38, I think the argument would be more persuasive to me. But I feel like right now, based on listening to you, listening to the board, and then also listening to the conversations I had with janitor, it seems like we have kind of a nice equilibrium at this point in time. It seems to me that the janitors feel confident. They're not asking for really, I don't hear them asking for increased staff. I don't hear them asking for reduced staff. They say they can get the job done with the existing staff. They don't see the economic viability of doing this, not because it's going to increase or decrease staff. They just feel that they can get this job done because they have an equilibrium of staff and what they're required to do presently. So, like I said, when you had 38, and this would have been a way to bring down staff to a more manageable number in the high 20s, early 30s, that would be one thing. But where we're staffed now, it's kind of almost scary for me to think that if, based on the economics, we're going to be tied to a 3-year contract and we have to make cuts, we're not going to be able to get out of the contract. We'll have that contract for 3 years. But maybe if you have to lay off, hopefully not more staff, maybe you have to lay off staff. At least the board has some discretion at that point. But like I said, if I was hearing something more from the staff, that they were saying we need more staff, and you were saying no, we can privatize basically what you're saying and not hire more staff, that would be one argument. But they're not saying that. They're not saying we need more staff. We just need to keep the same staff, and we can get this all done. So that's their commitment to the board, or at least to me anyway. They're not asking you to hire more. So I don't really see the economic necessity this year to do that. Maybe next year, times things will change, but I think we're in a nice equilibrium with staff and budget. That's my opinion.
Could the board consider possibly doing an elimination of one custodian going with this plan? While the first year would be a cost of $9,000, but it would give us, let us see what we're getting for the money, what the impact is on the inside of the buildings. Can we get some of this other stuff cleaned up, like in front of the high school, so desperate need of painting? And we've got a lot of things in the buildings that need to be done
Yeah, what's our time frame for making this decision?
right now.
Well, I mean, if we were to put it off, can we? 'Cause- And the reason I asked, just hear me out on this. I understand where Dave's coming from. I deal with staffing and making sure people are in the right place to succeed on a daily basis. And what he's saying is accurate. We want to concentrate, we want to specialize, we want to have people in the building. We don't want to maintain the equipment, we want to have somebody else maintain that equipment. It gets to be cost prohibitive, it's time consuming. There's a lot of benefits to doing what he's saying. I think it would make everybody feel better if we had it presented in a manner for potentially the layperson that does not always look at this kind of stuff on a day-to-day basis to see it spelled out. So maybe what we could do is have a breakdown of where the existing staff would be located within the school district, what they would be doing, and then we would know that they're not outside, and then we can look at the cost of this outside service taking care of grounds. That way we can weigh it out. I mean, you're looking at it plain and simple as opposed to just going back and forth. I mean, I get what Andrew's saying about the opinions of those that are doing the work. I would hope that they feel like they could do anything. That's the kind of staff that you want. Doesn't mean that what they're saying is accurate though. We have to look at it objectively, and I do get what you're saying, But I would always want my team to think that they can get a job done. That's exactly, that's a, you know, that's a tip of the cap to Dave for keeping them motivated, or them keeping themselves motivated. But it doesn't make it an accurate statement, if you get what I'm saying.
Well, the reason this is back is that this has been bounced at the meetings twice. We're coming up on a July 1st kickoff time, and if you're picking a contractor, you have a contractor that needs clients. You have asked contractors to bid this, being ready to kick this off on July 1. Well, they can't pick up a full year's worth of clients now and then be able to handle this. So either they're going to have to pick up a full load of customers, and then they're going to have to drop them mid-season, which is not going to go well. Or you have a local business that you've selected for this that's going to die all summer because they're not going to get the start. And we took a beating last night. We took a horrible beating last night. We are not done cutting this budget. We are not even remotely done cutting this budget. The Board of Finance took our list because we didn't go to zero. Their exact comment was, well, they're comfortable cutting that, so are we. So they took the money that we voted as a future potential list and said, well, since they didn't want to go to zero, they're comfortable cutting $792,000. Good, so that's gone. But they want to see us cut $1.2 million. So they're looking for another $600,000 out of that budget. We're going to need to continue as a group. They're meeting in 2 weeks. They're not meeting next week because they can't get a quorum. They're meeting in 2 weeks, and they're going to set the budget. We're going to see, after everything we did Monday night, we're going to be staring at another $500,000 to $600,000. Is that a safe assumption? So we're going to need to make hard decisions where to save money regardless. I mean, this is going to be, I mean, the custodial position that we didn't cut, oh, we're going to be visiting that. We're going to have to. I mean, we're going to need to come up with another chunk of money from somewhere. And this is not laying anybody off. This is getting rid of the extra cost of maintaining the equipment, having to replace the equipment, and it allows the director of facilities to concentrate his staff effectively on projects, and we have somebody else doing the outside. It just alleviates that. I mean, we're just not done. I mean, we're going to have to revisit this, and we could look at it as essentially it would be a wash if you laid off just one, and we could approve that tonight. But then in 3 weeks, we're going to be sitting down having that same conversation. We just are. I mean, we can't kid ourselves that we're not going to. And Jim. Just come around.
John mentioned, you know, we laid off from Forbes and Vogel. Now,
No, we didn't
We didn't lay off. One retired, and one passed
okay.
away.
So we did fill those two vacancies. Dave, is your idea to reorganize the existing custodians so they are made whole again, or some kind of workload, work sharing?
Exactly. What I'm going to be trying to do is we'll probably be developing a couple of split type shifts where someone will be working instead of 7 to 3, they might be working 11 to 7, you know, to take care of a lunch crew or a lunch shift at one school, and then, you know, working at cleanup during the night or something like that. So yes, there's going to have to be a reorganization of how the custodians are set up in the schools right now. Currently, with a couple of the workman's comp, I'm going to have to make adjustments for that, you know, to cover these. That way, they'll at least be whole to where we started the year in that respect, because we started with 2 out, and we'll have to make that. We'll have to make that. The two that are, hopefully they'll be back healthy, so then we'll be able to work it as 26.
I do understand, like Jeremy said, I understand how you're going to get the $4,200 back into the schools. That makes logical sense. You're cutting $4,200 hours outside the school.
Right.
So that makes sense, and I think that kind of eases the pain in terms of what the custodians have to do. They're getting to do more of what they need to do inside.
Mhm.
You know, we're not changing their pay, we're not changing the number of people, we're just giving them a more concentrated task.
Right. Exactly.
Jessica?
I have a concern about the fact that it's a 3-year contract. I'm not really sure why we would have looked for a 1-year contract to see this on a trial basis, if this actually did work well or not. Because with 3 years, I mean, we talk about not having to maintain the equipment and all that. If you don't maintain your equipment for 3 years, or if you decide to sell it off, then if this system isn't working for you, you're kind of stuck to it. And if you can't get a vendor to come in and give you a price that works in our budget, you really have no options. So, I mean, I would feel, and then I guess it's probably too late in the game to ask people to issue new contracts, whatever, but I think it's a mistake to sign on for 3 years to something that we don't even know it's gonna work.
But you have an out.
Yeah, there's an out in the
Performance clause.
contract, there's a performance clause in the contract.
But a performance clause isn't necessarily gonna help us if we just figure out that our decision wasn't the right one. Maybe they're doing a great job with the outside stuff,
Yeah.
but it's not achieving inside the buildings what we wanted it to achieve.
Yeah.
So
Then we
the
have to go-
performance clause-
Then we would have to go to the inside of the building to find out why we failed there.
Well, maybe it's not a good idea. I mean, maybe nobody's doing anything wrong, maybe it just, the plan didn't work out the way that we thought it would. Or maybe it does.
Okay.
I just, like, I'm uncomfortable with the duration of the contract. I think that would be a deal breaker for me.
I did that, basically, I think the board, and I'm pretty sure it was this board here, kind of gave me a directive when we do go out for contracts to make them multi-year contracts to see if we can lock in pricing at a, for a better rate for 2 or 3 years, rather than trying to do 1 year and then putting it out all over on an RFP again to see. Usually you'll get a higher number than what you started with. So that's why you try to lock in a longer duration.
It's really Dan, being that you're the one who negotiated with this bargaining unit.
Yeah.
In the process, did you sense that they were uncomfortable with the staffing arrangements as going forward with their contract? Or do you sense, I sensed that from what I gathered, they were willing to somewhat concede to the staffing, as long as it basically stayed at that staffing level?
To answer your question the best I can, because it's hard to tell in the negotiations, because you're not sitting at the table with one bargaining unit. They require that they all sit at the table together. So you have paras there, secretaries there, cafeteria workers, and custodians. So the table dynamics are very hard because they're all doing their own internal negotiations to come up with a finalized contract that they can all agree on. During the content of the negotiations, the outside of the building contracting, because it has been a continuing problem about the interior of the buildings, was brought up the fact that, no, we want the outside so we can send it out and have companies take care of the outside. We need our people inside, making sure these buildings are as clean as possible. And that the students and the staff that are getting the direct contact are getting the direct contact with our staffing members. What was gone through is the initial response from the custodian staff was no, they did not want to give up the outside of the building. They were reminded of the fact that New Haven's custodian staff went to the same thing, and at the state arbitrator, New Haven's custodian staff lost all of it. So New Haven outsources their entire custodian staff. Only their managers work for the district. The custodians themselves do not. Same thing for the city. They have a division in the city that uses an outside contract, I believe it's Bucket and Pail, to take care of their custodian work. And again, the manager works for the city. In this particular case, we did not want to turn around and say to our custodians, we want to get rid of you. That isn't the intent. The intent is, however, the fact that we don't have to replace a truck. We don't have to replace a plow. We don't have to buy another lawnmower. We don't have to buy another weed whacker. We don't have to buy another snow blower. And simultaneously, if we can get the guys back into the building, hopefully it'll alleviate some of the stress, because most of the outside time, particularly during the winter, was time and a half. And our custodians reach maximum pay after 4 years. So their top step is 4 years after they start. So the only increases they get are what's negotiated in the contract or whatever overtime they can acquire. So there's a whole financial aspect to that. During the course of negotiation, they agreed that, okay, as long as they keep the inside of the buildings, they're willing to give up the outside. Nobody was happy about it, but they were willing to do it, to keep their people in the buildings. And that was the original intent, was to, okay, we'll keep the inside the buildings, you guys stay here, and we can make sure this gets done. Outside the buildings, again, I don't need to pay somebody $56,000 a year to ride a lawnmower. I can pay somebody $20,000 a year for a company, and they can cut our lawn, they can cut the lawn up at BJ's, they can cut the lawn over at Target through those little islands. Again, they can spread their work out, so their costs are much less, because that's what their staff does. But we're paying custodians that, okay, we're gonna pay you just out $56,000 this year to run outside to now cut the lawn, to pick up the leaves. Is that the best use of taxpayer dollars, or is it better use to take that $56,000 person, put them inside, making sure the bathrooms are clean, making sure that all the rooms are taken care of? Again, they're doing the best job they possibly can. They are understaffed, they have people out. They are trying to work with us, I believe, to come to a solution to help stop that from happening. Because they're not proud of the way things look either. They are working hard at it. And what this solution does is it allows them to say, okay, we're not happy, but we'll give that up willingly. And now we can have the inside of these buildings, and we're fairly certain we can take care of it without having to go anywhere else. There is no part of the inside of buildings that can be removed from them to give to anyone else. So that part of the contract doesn't change. Once this is done, there is no more cutting of staff to the outside of the building. There is no more saying somebody retires, we're not going to backfill. Because now everybody is inside. So you have to make one heck of an argument. The good part is we can budget for 3 years. Because we have a 3-year contract with the custodians, we have a 3-year contract with the outside maintenance firm, 3-year, I believe, with the snowplow company. So for the next 2 budget cycles, we can budget this month for what's going to happen for the next 2 years, which is very good. Yes, sir.
The expectation, though, when you said we will move you inside so you can actually get that work done, was that it would be at full staff, not you're going to be cut by 2, but you'll be going inside, right? I mean, you didn't tell me to cut 2, did you?
No, I have no intention of riffing people for it.
No, but you didn't, they expected that they would have a full staff, full according to when you were negotiating. It's like a treaty. For as long as current conditions prevail, the treaty is in effect. They were expecting that this contract would reflect existing conditions. And, you know, people have the right to expect that unless they're told differently. If we're not forthcoming with them, we're sort of duplicitous.
Oh, I don't disagree with you, John. The challenge is, as was just pointed out, we're going to be sitting here in a couple weeks, and if the city doesn't at least give us the increase equivalent to what our contracts are, the only way to meet our contract obligations is to reduce staff.
But not necessarily custodians.
True.
No, there's other staff that can always be reduced.
Okay. And final question, weren't we talking about this starting on April 15th at the beginning? When we first started talking about this, when there was still snow on the ground? I thought April 15th was when we...
I thought it actually came in February.
I thought that was a short, that's why the first year was cheaper.
When it was going to be spring, that's why I
They were
thought.
gonna start in April. They were gonna start work in
I just
April.
wanted to make, because you said July 1st, and we've been talking when we started.
Well, yeah, the next year starts July. This year, we can't talk about the short year because it's pretty much over.
We brought this up in February. This was brought to you in February.
February, yeah. Fiona.
Dave, can I ask you a question?
We don't. Fiona first.
Just
I
my
guess.
recollection of when we talked about the contract terms was that basically you weren't gonna get any contractors to bid on a 1-year contract because they would have to adjust their staffing, possibly their equipment to take on a job of this size.
Right, it wouldn't be a true season that we would be able to, give them a price for either. We wouldn't be accomplishing anything if we were gonna do it from July 1st to, we'd miss the whole spring.
Right.
So we're picking that up the following 2 years, basically.
Dave, when you put the RFP together, did you look at the staffing model for what one FTE could manage in terms of square feet? I believe you did. The CASBO model for...
I don't have that with me.
Right, but I know you did work it up. That's when you got to the having to, changing the shifts. And cover all the schools.
Do we have any other questions for Dave at this point? Thank you, Dave.
Okay.
Joe, nurse coordinator position.
Right, thank you. In your packets, you have a spreadsheet that was presented to personnel and to budget, and seemed to receive very well. What we have is, in particular, in view of this difficult budget season, we have a solution in front of us that actually was brought to my attention by our nursing staff, who are very dedicated, and also from Mr. Jeff Jump, who's the representative for Local 1579. We had a very frank and honest conversation about the needs of the district, the concerns of our nurses, in particular with new mandates coming forward for, in particular, glucagon administration and coverage of field trips. For this year, we had posted the nurse supervisor position. We really didn't get too many applications. It was a $65,000 position. What the nurses presented, and we discussed at length, was to have one of their own, Linda Johnson, serve more as a nurse coordinator. So she would coordinate the needs of the nurses for ordering supplies, coverage of events, coverage for substituting if a nurse is out and the sub is not available. We would get all of the benefit of the nurse supervisor, but Mrs. Johnson would do it as the nurse coordinator. She would maintain her pay where it is. There is a stipend in the TEA contract, which is around just over $2,000 that we would pay her, and we would do all of this at a $20,573, if you allow me to round up, savings. So we would keep the current staffing. Mrs. Johnson would move to the nurse coordinator position. We would then hire a nurse to take her position at East School, who would then be hired at the bottom of the scale, so there is savings there. What we talked about in personnel and budget, from a personnel standpoint, we're getting all the advantages of the nurse supervisor, and for budget, the advantage was with the $20,000 savings. So I think it's a very reasonable and cost-efficient resolution to what will become a very thorny problem. And I think, as one board member did point out in the budget, it's worth the time, the effort, obviously the savings to do this reorganization, because the first time we got hit with $1 million lawsuit, we'll probably wish we had done it.
Now, this has gone through 3 subcommittees, policy, personnel, and budget. It's passed unanimously at all 3.
Correct.
We talked about it on Monday. Is there anybody that needs any further conversation on this? Excellent presentation, Mr. Campbell.
Thank you.